Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to High on History. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Liz. And we have a fun episode today.
Yeah.
First, our shout outs to Green Health. We found out this week when we went in for our normal purchase.
Yep.
That they actually watch our show.
And put us on the TV in their dispensary. And just, we love you guys.
Thank you guys so much. That made us feel so good.
Yeah.
That was amazing. So big shout out to all of our fans.
Thank you guys for watching and supporting us. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe. Share us with your friends. Hit that like button. We love you guys.
Do we want to make kind of a little bit of a preliminary announcement about that?
We might as well start telling people that it's happening. We have a small enough fan base. So we've ran into some issues over the last year and a half of doing High on History. Specifically running into other channels that have a very similar name to us. I specifically really love the High on History channel out of Belarus. These guys are amazing.
They're really good. We don't want to...
And we don't want to compete with them. They're not, they're doing something completely different, but very similar at the same time than we are. And then we also keep getting
and they have a ton of subscribers, a ton.
Yeah, and our subscription fan base is just so little in comparison. And then we also get wrapped up in a lot of drugs and paraphernalia type videos that we're not associated with.
That's just not what we're covering. I mean, it's neat history, but there's so many places that cover it. That's not what we're doing.
So we are in the process of making some decisions about rebranding.
Mm-hmm. We're going to have a new YouTube channel.
New channel. We're going to be on Spotify. We're going to upload a Patreon, PayPal. You could probably find us on Audible as well. We're looking into.
Yeah.
We'll have merch store.
Discord.
Yep, we'll have a Discord. And that channel's name is going to be Yesterday's Tea. We're in the process of needing a little bit of funding. We're not asking you guys to help us.
No, but I was thinking about setting up a GoFundMe.
You were thinking about setting up a GoFundMe.
I was thinking about setting up a GoFundMe for it. Yeah.
Okay.
So if I wind up being able to do that, I haven't looked into it at all, but if I wind up doing that, then our next episode I'll give you all the deets.
Yep.
But yeah, so it turns out that all of that costs a lot of money that we don't really have or make. We're working on ways to try to make some of that ourselves, but all donations are absolutely welcome so that we can get our name trademarked and we can get
a business license going, so we're able to have profit taxes and all that legality stuff done. And that costs money that we don't have currently.
Right.
So
we're looking into ways to address that.
Ways, and anything and everything would be appreciated when that's available for you guys. And should we tell them what we're gonna rename ourselves?
I think you just you did, but it's Yesterday's Tea. Yesterday's Tea. And which is gonna inform a little bit. We've been very it's been hard for us to find our groove. Neither one of us have really been on camera before. There's the research aspect. There's a lot that goes into this, and
it's just the two of us.
It's just the two of us. We have no idea what we're doing. So it took us a while to find our groove, but one of the things that we noticed was some of the episodes that we enjoyed watching the most, that we found the least cringe.
Just gossipy.
Yeah, it was when we were kind of gossiping about history, and so that's, I guess, the shtick, the idea
that we're trying to
go for should be a lot of fun, and we just really appreciate everybody who's been on this journey with us. So thank you all so much.
Also, all of our original content from High on History
will be on the new channel. We heard you guys. We were gonna
completely erase all of it.
And do it all again. We weren't going to. But enough people told us, absolutely don't you dare, that we were like, okay, all right, fine.
Yeah.
Even though a bunch of it is super cringe.
But we appreciate your love and support. And I mean, again, please like, share, subscribe, leave us a comment, do whatever you can to help boost us.
We got a comment the other day and I responded to it.
Did we?
We did.
Oh my
Somebody
God,
asked us how it was that we picked our topics.
Oh.
And they were like complimenting our depth, which I thought was very cool, but they asked why we picked our topics. As I mentioned in the comment, originally it was really just like we would have a random question about history and we would just start, we would get very high at work and then we would start asking questions like, why was King George mad? And then, we'd start researching everything from poisonous dyes and,
yeah.
and so we
went down rabbit holes.
Yeah,
and that's how we picked our topics. Really, it's just
whatever interested us. And then we had told people on several of those videos,
in the first season,
hey, give us a topic. If you want a topic to be covered, we'd love to cover it. And and the thing is, we haven't said that in a while. It's a good thing. Because we were asked specifically to cover the French Revolution, and that has been this entire season.
We had to go back all the way to Louis XIV in order to truly...
Oh, we actually went back even further than that. We did. We went back like 200 years before that.
Yeah.
Just to lay the scene out. So if you haven't seen those episodes, they're kind of important for really setting the stage. That's what we did in the first episodes.
Uh-huh.
And then
now we're in a rabbit hole on the Enlightenment.
The Enlightenment. We ran smack dab into the Enlightenment.
Because the Enlightenment is what caused the revolutions of both French and America.
And changed the world.
Absolutely.
Changed the world. So we're in the middle of this sidetrack story on the Enlightenment because you can't, as it turns out, tell the story of the revolution without explaining Louis XIV and all of his excesses and who he was, and then how that's happening while the Enlightenment is happening, and then also we will return to it at some point. Just a reminder while all of this is going on, because we haven't said it in a while.
Yeah.
The weather is terrible. It's ruining the crops. Black plague is everywhere. All of this is happening at once. This is so important to understand the story.
Right.
Climate change is wrecking France.
Well, the bubonic plague isn't wrecking France anymore, but it is other viruses. There are other things. There are cases. It keeps
boomeranging around and around and around.
But it was not nearly. I think it was more smallpox was ravaging.
Yeah. I think it was smallpox by now. We need to get back into that. We need to figure out because disease is still just. Starvation is a big problem
when we get to Louis XV. We'll stay on our sidetrack of the Enlightenment, finish up the Enlightenment, and we'll we'll get back.
Yeah.
With Louis XV.
Yeah, definitely. So, today, when we talk about the Enlightenment, if we talk about it at all, we tend to talk about it in the abstract. In fact, like even just the phrase "the Enlightenment," that's just some abstract thing, and we say that as if everybody understands what that means.
Core principles, yeah.
But it was very modern. It was in its time. It was about asking the most prescient questions of the day.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was about how power flowed and how money flowed. These are big things. And how justice flows. So they start applying scientific reasoning about how government has to function and also to economic systems, prosperity, and opportunity. Before this time, there had kind of been a couple of ideas. One was that the poor were poor because they lived in a lesser state of grace. God chose them to be poor.
Punishment.
Divine suffering, yes. Yeah. That some people had to suffer because God willed it. And the Enlightenment is like,
nope.
Maybe it's just a bad system that leaves a bunch of people out and a system we can fix.
Yeah.
So that's one of the places where they start applying reason to economy.
Right.
But to understand what's happening, first we do have to talk about mercantilism.
Yes.
Mercantilism operated on the economic theory that wealth and resources were finite, and so someone had to lose if someone else gained. So it sees everything as a closed system of finance, right? The state, therefore, sought always to hoard and gain as much wealth and property as possible at the expense of other nations. So they didn't just believe that it was, finite within a nation.
Yeah.
There's a finite number of resources in the world, so we have to
hoard them all.
Compete with all these other nations to hoard the greatest amount.
So pretty much one nation's loss is another nation's gain, where mercantilism favored the trade, maximizing exports while minimizing their imports, and that included high tariffs, strict government regulations, including establishing monopolies while favoring domestic industry, and that was in order to accumulate the maximum wealth of gold and silver, specifically being hoarded more than anything else.
Right.
Who has the most gold makes the rule. And colonies, the America, the Caribbean, the African, the West Indies, all of those colonies, their sole purpose was to import or export raw materials back to the motherland.
Right.
And that was the sole
purpose of mercantilism. To create as much of that wealth as possible. Now, I don't know what happened to my card on Laissez Faire, but, it's probably just in here with Adam Smith. Okay. So that brings us to Adam Smith. He's one of these Enlightenment thinkers. He's 1723 to 1790. He's not French, he's Scottish.
Yeah.
So in 1776, very important year, Scottish thinker Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations.
That was a good writing.
I'm going to take just a very brief sidetrack here to mention that while I was doing research for this episode, I wanted to read some of these essays and pamphlets the Enlightenment thinkers were publishing. First of all, they are not massive books. They are not long and difficult reads. They are very small reads. They're very short reads. They are more essays.
Than 700 words.
Some of them are less than 700. Some of them right around 700. They could be read out loud in taverns for the most part, and they often were.
Yeah.
So they are not long, and they are not behind academic paywalls. They are free. They are on Wikipedia. They are on Wayback Machine.
Accessible.
You can absolutely read all these source documents for yourself, and I highly recommend it. I am currently reading Beccaриa's on Crime and Punishment.
There's also countless actual publications of people who have done their research, who are experts in these different philosophers, topics, and minds that do amazing publications. The original essay from Adam Smith may only be 700 words, but you'll get a 500-page book elaborating.
Right.
And it's brilliant.
So it is interesting, too, because the books that have been written about these very short documents are like, War and Peace size.
Yeah.
But the documents themselves are very, very digestible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I highly recommend whether you watch anything you like stop what you are doing and go read the Enlightenment thinkers. It's worth it. To call Wealth of Nations revolutionary is definitely an understatement.
Yeah.
In a system of monarchs and mercantilism, Smith proposed that wealth was not fixed. So that's the big difference here. He says that wealth can be created through productivity, specialization, and voluntary exchange. So what he's saying is when you let people create their own things and trade freely.
It's free market capitalism is what he's promoting.
Right, he's promoting free trade capitalism. He says everybody is contributing to the system in some way, and if government keeps their hands out of this process and just lets them, then rather than wealth being fixed and hoarded and therefore having to be hoarded, it's actually created through specialization, through trade, for people contributing this skill or that skill.
It's by increasing with saving and investing in the capital of being productive is where the wealth comes from. Right. The more productive the people are, the more wealthy they're going to be ultimately. He was also the father of modern economics, actually.
And this is what's called Laissez Faire Economics.
Laissez Faire Economics is what he created, which is actually a cost-based accounting system based on overhead management, productivity, and materials and costs. It's actually a really interesting, fascinating subject that he created.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he's definitely one of these that you should look into. We can only cover, we would just be here for years if we covered all the Enlightenment thinkers with the same amount of gusto that we covered Rousseau and Voltaire.
Voltaire.
Yeah. And even still, as I'm going through these guys, Montesquieu, Locke, and Smith. Then Condorcet.
Yeah, right.
Just they're all fascinating people, and they're absolutely worth discovering in as much detail as you can. So Adam Smith is also the one who starts talking about division of labor, specifically. He notes that when large projects are broken into smaller tasks and those tasks are assigned to specialized worker, overall productivity dramatically increases. And of course, this exact idea lays the groundwork for the entire Industrial Revolution. Modern economic theory is essentially based on exactly that.
Right. So also with his laissez-faire idea, government's role is strictly to provide goods and services, including infrastructure and national defense. That is protection from invasion of foreign governments. That is not... National defense is not internal. Minimal intervention in the economy as well. So government's hand is not allowed to be in the economic system. By pulling the government out of the economy, you lower the tariffs and you promote free economic trade, dropping monopolies from developing. The restriction of trade, such as tariffs and monopolies, actually hinder the development of economic growth. And people who would actually specialize, chase their dream, so to say, in order to better the welfare and the interest of the entire community. And that's the idea behind laissez-faire as well.
I have this card labeled Discoverable Laws of Economy. I think I've mentioned in a previous video that one of the big differences between the way we think about law in the modern sense and the way they thought about law in the 1700s was that law was considered to be a discoverable science. It wasn't something to be made up. Justice followed the laws of reason and nature. And so the proper application of justice could be discovered through reason and thought. They also thought this exact same thing about the economy. The economy wasn't a mechanism to be manipulated. It followed natural laws. Those laws could be discovered and then on discovery properly applied.
So ultimately what you're saying here is the scientific method absolutely transformed economics it was taking speculative theories and turning them into social science, focusing on a data-driven evidence. And basically, scientific theory made it possible for it to even be a social science.
Well, kind of. Like what I'm saying in brief is that the same way that gravity is an invisible force that can be discovered, they believed that there were forces that guided the laws of economics. Those could be discovered. And then, everything that you just said. Yeah.
Econometrics is what that's called. Yep. It bridges the gap for the speculative theory and
econometrics.
Econometrics.
Econometrics?
Yes. And it bridges the gap for speculative theory and effective policy making.
Yeah. Okay. So, There was also the notion that progress was going to always be forward. And we're going to run into this notion again and again. Even in the middle of them watching their own society kind of revert.
Yeah.
The Enlightenment thinkers were very much believe this notion that the long arm of history bends towards justice, towards progress.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact of that paradigm shift was the realization that politics, economics, and social institutions can be studied, improved, and refined. History itself came to be seen in a new light, no longer centered on the biblical narration of the creation, the fall of man, and divine judgment. The people began to see it as a human project. This is what's so important even for our modern thinking. It's a human project where society can be perfected, and I'm putting that in air quotes, so we'll get to that in a second, through knowledge, education, and reform. Now the air quotes there on perfection. It doesn't mean flawless.
Right.
Like, perfect doesn't mean without fault or blemish of any kind. Not to the Enlightenment thinkers. Rather, they defined it as man's ability to overcome ignorance, superstition, sin, and corruption. These were viewed simply as obstacles, and those obstacles could be overcome with knowledge, reason, and rationality. If applied, we could prevent injustice, poverty, perhaps even, ultimately, war. And only in an educated society, where reason rules law, and law rules everyone equally, can liberty thrive. And liberty means something very specific to the Enlightenment thinkers. Again, it's not this, oh, I'm free to do whatever I want, that is not what liberty ever meant. It's just super important. So, liberty was understood to be firmly rooted in civic participation.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom was understood to rise from having a voice in the laws that govern society. Authority flows from the people by the consent of the governed rather than bestowed by God or bloodline. And it's from this understanding that we form the idea of representative government. So these people are like, well, power comes from consent of the government, from the people.
Yeah.
This is how we get to representative government, where officials are held accountable to the citizens, and because that power is granted by the people, it may be questioned, challenged, or even withdrawn at any time. And so we return then to the rule of law, because participation alone isn't enough to create a stable system. So participation does one thing, but that can create mob rule. Like, the Enlightenment thinkers were not naive. They knew what mob
was
rule
coming.
looked like, right? So then they go a step further. They say power, even elected power, can't be arbitrary, or liberty cannot flourish. Freedom only thrives, or even survives, if and when government actions are constrained, fixed, publicly known, and laws apply equally to all citizens regardless of social or political status or position. And that was a long, complicated way of saying they were arguing for constitutions to rule the elected representatives. So it doesn't do you any good to have elected representatives if those representatives are not also bound to law. So they're arguing for either constitutional monarchy or constitutional republics, mostly for constitutional republics.
The Enlightenment's greatest legacy, actually, in my opinion, was the invention of individual agency. By moving away from the idea of suffering is a divine decree, it made social injustice something that was fixable rather than inevitable. However, the main challenge of applying reason is ensuring that the reason that is used to fix society is applied ethically and universally to everyone.
Right. So you can't have classes of people that it doesn't apply to. It has to apply to elected officials. It has to apply
to everyone.
Everyone equally. And that's a big thing that they're on. And this is going to bring us into our smaller bio about one of the great Enlightenment thinkers, Cesare Beccaria. Yeah. Now, he is an Italian, 1732 to 1794. Notice how when these Enlightenment thinkers, poor dudes, start biting the dust.
Right.
The 1790s were hard on people.
Uh-huh.
So, as we discussed on our segment on Baron de Montesquieu, many of the Enlightenment thinkers were specifically interested in the in justice, in criminal justice, in the system of applying reason to justice and criminal law.
Yeah.
One of these was an Italian aristocrat, Cesare Beccaria of Milan, and he is just 26 years old when he, in 1764, published a book called On Crimes and Punishments.
Such a great read. And it's not even a full book. Again, it's actually a fairly short essay.
It is. With a foreword written by Voltaire. Voltaire was a fan.
Voltaire was a big fan of his work.
Yeah, and it is short. I'm in the process of reading it.
Yeah.
It's what I was doing at Friday on work when I should have been working. He's trying to apply rational principles to criminal justice. He argues against torture, secret trials, excessive punishment, and the death penalty.
By arguing for all of that, he really believed that the rational system for punishment should deter instead of and prevent, rehabilitate people instead of being a system based on retribution. Torture doesn't get you anything.
Exactly.
More often than not, torture led to false confessions. So capital punishment isn't necessary, and when it comes to the law, a judge should act rational and with due process, assuming that they are innocent until the law of the judge decrees.
Yeah, he argued that laws had to be clear, public, and applied equally, that punishment should be aimed at preventing future harm rather than satisfying vengeance or merely demonstrating the power of the state. So a lot of times, punishment at the time was doled out. We're gonna set an example. If you cross a state, this will happen to you. And he's like, that is a terrible system. Idea. Because it doesn't prevent, his argument isn't just a moral one. It is a moral one. He makes a moral argument. But he's also making an argument about human nature. And what he says is, you can do this, but it isn't even effective. It doesn't work. There's still crime.
Right.
Ergo, it's not working. It is a short treatise. What is interesting about it is that several states of the time read it and outright abolished torture after reading it because of it. Some states either narrowed the use of capital punishment. There was at least one state that simply got rid of the death penalty altogether in response. This is a 26-year-old. He writes this fairly short essay. It goes like wildfire.
Viral.
Totally viral. And nations changed their laws.
It became the foundational text for criminology, arguing for legal reform with swift justice instead of letting you sit and rot in prison. And a lot of his publication on crimes and punishment was a major impact on many, many modern legal systems today, including the United States Constitution and our Bill of Rights.
And we're going to get into some very specific stuff about that here in just a moment. One thing I just want to say about Beccaria, he's a little bit different. He's not flamboyant Rousseau. Yeah. He is not volatile Voltaire. Like Voltaire, he comes from aristocracy. But he was a cautious, reserved, quiet man. He was not out there seeking fame and fortune. He was not in the salons, at the top of his lungs. No, he's just writing these quiet little treatises and actually worked in government his entire life.
Oh, boy, really?
Yeah. He worked in several administrative roles in the Austrian government in Lombardy.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so he was a jurist. He was in the legal profession. He was raised in the legal profession. What happened was that well, not raised in it, but like he was educated in law, and he just immediately hated how arbitrarily it was applied. And just immediately. And he was like, no, this doesn't make any sense. And so he went about his job, which was law, just quietly arguing for reforms and just doing his job as a minor government official.
Yeah.
That's how he lived his life.
Nice.
But on Crimes and Punishment, specifically, was read by Thomas Jefferson. And Jefferson was a fan.
Yeah.
So Jefferson was a fairly flamboyant dude. And he kind of went around being like, everybody should read this. He was really a big fan. Whether or not James Madison ever read it himself is interesting, but Madison probably knew of it at least.
Yeah.
From Jefferson, as they were...
Wasn't Jefferson and Madison like president and vice president? I know
Jefferson was a president. Madison was a president. I don't even know if they were on the same political side. I have not looked into their relationship.
When, if you lost the election, you became vice president.
That may be, but they were both president at different times. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I think Jefferson was the third president, Madison was the fourth, but I think Madison was vice president to Jefferson before he won his election.
Oh, you might be right. I honestly don't know. Like I said. Anyway.
Rabbit hole.
Gosh. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So there's actually no evidence one way or the other that Madison read Beccaria, but he was certainly immersed in the same legal philosophy. So he's in the same legal framework in terms of his thinking that Beccaria is. And he wrote in the Federalist number 62, so we're talking about the Federalist Papers here, written by James Madison. So this one, Federalist 62, was published in February of 1788, and Madison writes the following quote, "It will be of little avail to the people that the laws were made by men of their own choice, if the laws be so voluminous, that they cannot be read, or so incoherent that they cannot be understood." So that is saying a slightly different thing, but basically the exact same thing that Beccaria is saying, which is that the laws have to be clear, they have to be understood by the public. Otherwise, it doesn't even matter if you elected your own officials. If they are not bound by a law that's understood by everyone, you've got the same problem all over again. And I think that that's an important lesson to be thinking about in the modern moment. I'm assuming you have now Googled the answer to your question.
Yep. So, Madison was Secretary of State under Thomas Jefferson. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Secretary of State, okay.
So, I mean, no, not vice president, but he had a position.
Yeah. So, and so these guys are all in the same,
social circle?
Not social circle, because Beccaria is in Italy. He never meets Jefferson or Madison. But in terms of the ideas that are floating back and forth across the Atlantic, and that's really important.
Right.
There's this boomerang that's happening where Enlightenment ideas aren't just flowing from Europe into the colonies. They're also flowing from the colonies back into Europe.
Yeah.
And there's this back and forth of these ideas being traded. Largely, notice that right here we are not talking about poor people, common people, the average serf. Here we are talking about educated men of means.
Right.
This is what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And this is really important because the revolution could not and would not have happened had men of education and means not been a major part of who was arguing for better justice.
Yeah.
Which is, just I think an interesting note. We love to say eat the rich.
but the rich was what brought about the Enlightenment, surprisingly enough.
Yeah. So in this time, at least, they were attempting, I think, and I think there's this thing that's noted where there's great wealth inequality.
Yeah.
Actually, the people at the very top are more unhappy than if they were at the very top in a nation that didn't have great wealth inequality. And one of the reasons is a certain guilt. How can I be eating flambe every day when this guy can't get a crust of moldy bread?
Right.
You can't be happy in sipping on your claret,
knowing that
other people are starving.
Yeah.
So being rich does not of itself erase one's moral compass. I feel like this is a time to point that out.
I can agree with that.
Anyway, I think that is it for us today. We have next week the critiques and criticisms of the Enlightenment, because the hypocrisy is so deep.
Oh boy, yeah.
We're going to be talking about the Marquis de Condorcet.
As well as the feminist version of the Enlightenment.
Yeah, Mary Wollstonecraft.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. So, yep, we're going to get into the hypocrisies, because the Enlightenment, it was a... Obviously, we've covered this. Separation of power, division of labor, all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
But did they get everything right? Oh my, they did not. And we have to tell the story.
Yep, we gotta tell the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
And until then, don't forget to hit that like, share, subscribe.
Yeah, if you love what we do,
comment, tell us you love us. We love you. And until then, bye.
Bye.